Good afternoon and welcome to the Kentucky Center for Mathematics Zoom sessions. Today you're in for a treat. This is Pikeville, Kentucky's very own math interventionist, Miss Jackie Damron from the Mullen School. Jackie, we're so glad you're sharing your expertise today.
Thank you. I know I have big shoes to fill today because we had some wonderful discussions this past week, but several things that we talked about have to do with what I'm presenting today. I want to start off with this as I reiterate from Governor Beshear what he said every evening, so you don't have to all unmute and say it at the same time, but I wanted to do a shout out with that. We will get through this and we will get through this together, and I sure need that today with the internet problems that's already happened. But anyway, what I want to talk about is I want it to be as cohesive as possible. I want to start out with telling you a little bit about myself, and then I will go into my assessments, how those assessments work with the teachers, how the teachers work with the children, and then how it just kind of all comes together to make one school-wide positive math culture in the end. I've been a math interventionist for 3 years, educator for 30 years, all of those but 1 year spent in math, and that was in 8th grade language arts. We don't have time for that bad story, but anyway, I enjoy going to car shows with my husband. He's an avid collector of Corvettes and Camaros. I like lifting weights and reading. And the most important thing of all, of course, I'm excited to meet my first grandchild in just a few weeks. So there you go. And of course, the Kentucky Math Intervention, our goal is to provide developmentally appropriate diagnostic assessment and intervention services to students, primary through grade 12, and to help them reach proficiency in mathematics on the state assessments. Like I said earlier, we're going to talk about my data, how I use it to drive my own instruction, why we measure student growth in the first place. Do we give reading and math equal validation? And I think that was a point that was brought up yesterday in the rich conversation that we had. And then why should teachers be involved, the collaboration? And if you put all that together, you're going to get a school-wide positive math culture. And yesterday, this cartoon, it just fit perfectly with what was talked about yesterday. I know someone said, you know, it's not the question, did I teach it, but did they learn it? And that's what this is about. I taught Stripe how to whistle. I don't hear him whistling. And then it said, well, I said I taught him. He learned it. He didn't say he learned it. And I think that's so true. I know being in the classroom, I always thought, well, you know, if I teach it and it's on the standards, then I should have learned it if I've taught it. And so many times we know that that's just not how it is. Why measure student growth? I'm not going to read this verbatim, but the reason we measure student growth is so that the teacher can get an insight to know where to start with the child. So we're not teaching to the test, but teaching to the whole child. And the student is encouraged and applauded for his achievements and given feedback on areas that remain challenging. And that's easier, I know, of course, with us as MITs than it is in the classroom. And we do it so his future teachers understand his achievement and his starting point for new learning. And with growth data, and I love the data, I'm a data geek, probably educators are able to better pinpoint whether specific instructional strategies and intervention hold promise or if they need to adjust their instruction throughout the year. This is what I use at the beginning of the year. I created this little, I guess, Excel sheet, and you have a copy of this blank one, I think, in the map. Julie, I think we put that in the handouts that we had for them. But I put on there the teacher and the student, their MAP score, their percentile score from the MAP. Then you see the scores from the structures of AVMR. I also put notes out to the side. I have so many students, I can't possibly remember after tasting all of them what trouble that they had. For example, referral process is one, and is to have a reading IEP. Because one little boy that I taught, he wasn't great in math, but we found out as the year progressed, it wasn't actually his math that was lacking the most, it was his reading. And so many times I have found that a lot of it, they have such a poor self-esteem in reading that carries over to their math as well and affects their mindset. The reason that I have it color-coded is the green means that, you know, they're already there at their goal. The yellow In this case, yes, 3 would be good, but if it's the first time I give them the test, it's kind of cautionary, mainly for me, to make sure that that is where I want that they are, or that was just like a one-time thing, because that's not the only data point that I use by any means to put them in the program. The second thing is probably how it progresses around Christmas. This one, of course, was before the middle of the year MAP test, because you don't see the MAP score in there, but it's color coded as well. The green means that they moved up. The turquoise color means that they have met their goals. And the yellow, of course, means caution, because they stayed at the same place. So that lets me know I've got to do something to get them past that next level. And I've even had at times, where they've had red, and that's a big area. You're thinking red would mean, they fell below what they did before. And one little girl on there, I guess you see the asterisk, is a watch. A lot of hers is absenteeism for this particular child. And I also like to put on there possible retention, just things for me to see them. And when we meet the teacher during our PLCs, is this a factor, in what we should do with this child? The next thing is our school-wide MAP data. Every teacher in the building from K up to 8th grade is required to complete this form. This happens to be the form, I think, from last year. You have the BOI, MOI, and EOI, and the MAP is our screening tool that we use. It's just a tool. You have their fall score, and yes, we go by that to put them as one data point to put them so they need intervention. But by any means, I've seen it sometimes where kids are just really good guessers. And so then we go to the MOI, which is the one I like the most, because that lets me know that's more of a truer score, like my formative assessment part of it. And then the EOI, of course, I tend to think of as the summative part of it. And then at the end, we subtract the BOI and EOI to see their growth points. I'm real proud to say is that these kids, you can see they progress phenomenally. I'm so proud of them and take no credit for that, because it's all them. The next thing that my principal asked me, I said, can you go in my room and take a picture of my formative assessment wall? Well, I had these really pretty things at the top, together we can. He kind of missed some of that, but kudos for him for doing this for me anyway. The green is the goals that we're working on. And then the yellow you see at the top, that is my next steps. And the kids do look at that, but that's mainly for me to kind of guide me where I need to be. Where I see my kids is at the bottom, where it says not yet, almost there, and good to go. My kids each have a stick with their name and group on it, and they put it in there where they think they belong. Do I do it daily? Sometimes it just depends on what point we're at instruction, when I do this. But I always put them, if I see one put it in good to go, and I think, oh, you probably belong in the yellow, they have to prove it to me. And I feel like, and it's a big thing, I feel like the atmosphere in our classroom lends itself to be, it's okay if I make a mistake. They can be honest with me. And that's one part that I really love about it. They can be who they are, who they feel that they are with that. Now, I threw this in there for my flexible schedule and groupings. This is a tribute to my teachers. They are so flexible and support this program so well. I'm not talking about just the +2. It's all over our school, and Julie can attest to that. My teachers, if I say I need to take one at 9 o'clock today, and then next week it didn't work out so well, I may take him at 11 o'clock, they adjust their instruction to help me. So I, at least 3 times, and that's an at least 3 times, I change my groups depending on my form of assessments, teacher observation, PLC, ABMR data, and the MAP data. My groupings change from 4 to 6 or from 6 to 4. Like recently, right before this coronavirus thing, I had switched up to where I had 6 in my 2nd grade groups, because I saw that my 1st grade groups really just needed that smaller group intervention. So we switched that up with no problem. And like I said, there's not just one data point, but all of this is looked at together. I work with grades K through K2. Now that doesn't mean I don't see my 3rd grade teacher. I work with her and do co-teaching in the classroom with her, because we have found for the past 2 years that the more bang for our buck comes from our K2. That's when they struggle the most. I have approximately 50 students per day, 4 days per week that I see. Somebody said, do you eat lunch? Well, when you can. Fridays are saved for make it days. Doing individual intervention for those at-risk kids, those kids that I put in yellow or in red. For co-teaching with my +2. And then providing resources for K-5 teachers. We also have a checkout system that I've labeled my games, and they come and check those out. And I attend their grade level PLC meetings on this day.
Hey, Jackie.
Yes.
If you want to pause just a second and see if somebody has any questions about your data analysis or tracking,
Okay.
or maybe what happens during a PLC.
Okay. Any questions about any of that, the assessments or the PLC meetings? I'm not looking at the chat, so therefore it's why you have to stop me.
Lee, I'm looking at it, Jackie, and it, everyone's saying you're responsive to the student needs. One of the things that I appreciated was the number of students that you see a day. Students, if you think about that in the sets that there are, you're exactly right. You get them down the hall, get them back, and roll again. So good for you touching as many students as you can, because you have a beautiful way of closing that achievement gap.
Anything else before we go on?
Anybody want to chime in? Well, I've got some of my, Kathy Hale and Rachel Redden, and you guys are, and several more on here that are MITs out there in the field. Maybe they can talk a little bit about how they assess their data, or how they do data, or thinking about some of the things that you just presented. Anybody got a comment? Yeah.
I just want to say, I'm sorry. For me,
You're
that
okay.
when you see the data, especially the specific AVMR data and how it's tied to math and growth, is the way that Jackie can clearly use that data, and she's intentional in her instruction. And she can see where, you know, she may need, how she adjusts either her grouping size and maybe move it to one-on-one instruction for those students, but actually using the data, right, and moving forward and being flexible in her groupings. And also she's getting ready to introduce her teachers here. And so the teachers there are a big part as well, and the principal, of what goes on in the school. So they're also, when she was saying it's not just her and what she's doing, she has constant communication with the teachers in her school. And so that's going to be the forefront of what she's getting ready to talk about, of how that all plays out and they collaborate together.
Yes, I think if it wasn't for the relationship amongst our school and our teachers, this wouldn't be a success that it is. I really don't think so. This is, that at the top is the article that I took some of this from. Do we give reading and math equal validation? And we talk about this all the time at our school. There's been millions of dollars spent on, and it says that in this article as well, on tutors for reading grants and so on. But, you know, math is kind of pushed to the side a lot of times. And I'm not saying that anybody's a specific school or whatever, but in general. And we can see that across the state, across many states, that math, the scores aren't, you know, where they need to be. And that's what makes me so excited about this math grant. I'm seeing it for the first time. I've been, like I said, many years in the school system, and it's coming to the forefront now. Math is being considered just as important. And one little boy I want to quote from this article, he, why he likes going to small groups, he said, well, telling his MIT teacher, you never say we did it wrong, and we talk about it and figure it out, and then nobody's wrong. And I love that. You know, I love that. But anyway, this is Miss Coleman. She was our +2 from last year. But I'll let her talk.
Good afternoon. I am Renee Coleman, third grade math teacher and former +2 at the MAF grant. I am by nature a reading person. However, after many years of teaching reading, I accepted a math position. After a few years into teaching math, it became apparent to me that math had not been given the same emphasis as reading. The more I researched, I noticed the same to be true about many schools. It is even evident in the math schools of our state. To any extent, since our school has been a part of this MAF grant, I have noticed a shift in not only emphasis on math, but on how it's taught. We have separated our have to knows from our need to know. To our math but lacking fluency. Consequently, this has caused a breakdown in the sequence of our mathematical development in our students. However, it's been very apparent this year that our school has greatly benefited from this grant. Each year, as I receive my new group of third grade students, the growth is so obvious in their math foundational skills. I'm very thankful that my students have had this opportunity, and I pray to continue to be blessed with this opportunity.
Did you hear that? I turned it all the way up, but it, for some reason, it's not doing correctly. So, could you hear it, Julie? Could you hear her?
Can hear it. Could you all hear it? I just thought maybe if making sure that the volume was all the way up.
We could hear it. Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
good.
Okay, I want to go over my light bulb moment as an MIT, where I taught math to students in grades 2 through 5 for 30 years. Second grade, I always wondered, as you did too, I'm sure, why they didn't know their addition, subtraction facts. And then in third grade, I wondered why couldn't they regroup, or why couldn't they borrow and carry as I was taught. And still in fourth and fifth grade, I had no clue why students couldn't learn and apply the multiplication facts. Then I had my moment. They hadn't mastered, and I didn't get this light bulb moment until I became an MIT, until I went to the trainings and I saw, because like I think Tonda said yesterday, you think you're doing okay, you think you're doing a good job, and then you go to these trainings, you're thinking, oh my, I wish, now I know why these kids aren't learning it. They didn't have a procedural and conceptual foundation ever since. They were coming to me in fourth grade, missing those runs in the ladder between the learning, and there's no way that we could play catch up with them. So there's a cute little video, and I'm not going to show all of it, but I just want you to, if you feel my pain in the day, like, the kids come in there with 10 fingers, but for some reason they leave with less. I don't know, they can't seem to get that figured out sometimes, but this is a real cute video. I may not show the whole thing because of time, but I want you to just put a little humor in this.
Okay, here's your homework. First I'm telling you the directions. What form takeaway 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Takeaway. What's 6 takeaway 1? 1. No, you take away. So you take away 1 out of 6. How much is it equal? What's 10 minus 1? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So take away 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And one more. And add one more.
Okay, I'll stop that right there. But that's, some days I feel like that. I don't know about you. You're thinking, I don't know any other way to make 10. It's constant like that. But that's another one of the perks of being at MIT. It just makes you, you go home, you dig, you find more strategies, you research what's going to work with this child. But when they do get it, that's such an amazing thing because they really have it. That takes me into Whitney. She is our +2 from this year. And this continues in the fact that it shows collaboration amongst our teachers. And I'm not talking about just the +2, but our overall teachers, how if they're just compliant, it's not going to work, but they have to be involved and they have to have commitment. And without that, then it's going to be success in pockets, but not school-wide. So here's Whitney's. I hope you can hear her.
Hi, my name is Whitney Tackett, and I'm a second grade teacher at Milledge Elementary in Pikeville, Kentucky. And I was blessed this past school year to work with the math grant.
I'm going to be talking about why teachers should be involved in collaboration and using math strategies. When teachers collaborate, we can use our interests and strengths of each teacher to contribute to student success. And that's why we do what we do every day. We want our students to be successful. So when we collaborate with our MIT, that helps the students build in their skills and be more confident in the classroom. And that also leads me to my next point. Why should we use the same math strategies that our MIT is using? That also helps build student confidence within the classroom. And it also helps increase their skills, whether we're in the classroom or outside of the classroom. So it's really important for teachers and MITs to work together. The more involved we are with one another will equal more commitment to student learning.
Thank you to Whitney. And that leads me to the fact that we're not an island. I know if you've taught for any length of time in the school system, you feel like that when you shut that door, you're in your own place. You're alone. If something happens, you don't go to anyone. But now I feel like that over the years, it's to where like the peer monitoring that we've added into the program and stuff, and us coming into their rooms with the +2s and different teachers and other teachers other than +2, want the MIT to come in and we share with each other. And I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but I want to, just the first paragraph. The most crucial finding was that the most effective schools, based on test score improvement over time, after controlling demographic factors that we can control, had developed an unusually high degree of relational trust among their administrators, teachers, and parents. And that's what it's all about, trust. You're not in there for a gotcha moment or whatever. You're there for the children. And I feel like that's what's helped to make us successful in our school. And I won't read that to you, but that's some very good points in there. It's just about people coming together, the administration, the teachers, the community, the parents. And I've even had parents, contact me, can my child come to you? And, you would think at first, do they want a child to be out of the classroom to come for intervention? But they don't see it as punishment, they don't see it as missing something. They see it as gaining something. And I think that's wonderful. Lindsay Frazier was our +2 from our very first year. She's a kindergarten teacher, and she's going to discuss with you. You can't hear it very well at first, so I'm going to try to move it up a little bit, but she has some good things to say about using collaboration. She was one of the very first ones, and I will have to kudos to Lindsay. She really did a good kickoff in when we first began this math grant of trying to include our teachers in the strategies we were using.
Really build this sense of network. I was able to bring that information back to my school and to share it with the primary staff. And that's where I really began to see a change in our school. People started working together. I can change that. I can tweak it a little bit and make it age appropriate for my students, or I can change it a little bit and work on this skill. And that's been really beneficial in sparking the change and starting to kind of shift the way that we think and the way that we teach. We've also had the MIT, Miss Jackie, who come into the classroom. She can help us kind of reinforce some skills or concepts that we're struggling to get across to our students and those kids are struggling with. Miss Jackie's been wonderful to come in and to help us with that. She also was able to pull students out to really work with them through falling behind or to give them just whatever they need. And so we've really had the opportunity to see so many professionals coming together, collaborating, and really making a difference for our students. And that's what it's all about.
And she gave a shout out to Miss Julie there too, but we couldn't hear because it was at the beginning. But Julie worked with Lindsay a lot too to get us going. Okay, the last video is at the top. It comes from the article How to Promote a Positive Math Culture at Your School. I love this article, and if you ever have to try to sell the fact that these strategies work instead of following a rigid curriculum or just by the book, this article would be very great to include in your PowerPoint. I think these 5 things have to be in place in order to have the school-wide math culture that we have at our school from K up to 8th grade. We are a K-8 school with approximately about 800 students. So you need to recognize and support effective math teaching, promote a growth mindset in math for teachers and students, recognize that being smart in math does not have to do with speed, but fluency. Ensure that the 5 strands of math proficiency are being addressed, and to be a facilitator of change, not be afraid of change. Oh, and he wanted me to let you know that even though he has his tie and jacket on, he does have sweatpants on, by the way. He thought I need to throw that out there.
Good afternoon. I'm Gary Field, Principal of Model School. First of all, I want to thank KCM and Kelly DeLong for providing us with virtual professional development. Our kindergarten to 8th grade teachers attended a virtual professional development during one of our non-traditional instructional days this year. And the goal was to extend our knowledge on the best practices and strategies for implementing guided math. We have always used small group instruction, but we knew we needed to be more intentional in what type of activities we need and how we could be more flexible in moving our students during these rotations to better differentiate our instruction. After this training, our teachers met in their math professional learning committees to determine what would work best for them. Obviously, guided math was going to look different across curriculum. Although we didn't want to micromanage every detail of how the teachers implemented these workstations, we still utilized look-fors during our walkthrough and formal observations. The main aspect we were looking for was use of manipulatives and hands-on activities to actively engage our students. Ms. Damron worked with the teachers on how to group their students and provided them with research-based activities. The teachers then were required to meet in a monthly math PLC to share ideas using this instruction. I am pleased to say that our teachers, as well as our students, seem to be more acclimated to this style of instruction, and math is evolving into an active block of learning with greater emphasis on numbers. Lastly, I want to give another shout out to KCM. During an admin meeting with principals earlier in the year, we were discussing various math strategies that need to be focused on during math instruction. With that being said, during an observation of an 8th grade math teacher, I commented on several strategies she was using during her math instruction and asked where she had learned about it. She commented it was during one of the math PLC meetings that Ms. Damron and the +2 teachers had conducted. Again, these are just a few examples of how the math grant, along with the intensive training and teacher collaboration, has created a positive math culture throughout our school. Again, thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.
And the last thing is I was thinking about what to put on to end the slides. You know, we are math intervention teachers, but we're also multiple individuals equaling a team. And I wanted to end the PowerPoint part of it with this little video. It's motivational, and I feel like not just us, but with KCM, with MITs, and our +2, we're all a family. And there's some misspelled words in here, by the way, and I didn't create the video, just want to throw that out there, but the message is beautiful. Okay, are there any questions before we go on to the last couple? I know I went over a little bit. This is actually better than what I thought it would have been.
Jackie, I really love
Did
the
awesome, Jackie.
metaphor. I love the metaphor of the geese and what that happens. I think it is a beautiful way that people interact with the ecosystem within a school. And when you have that nice environment, then student achievement just soars. Comments from others?
I loved it all. You were awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
sharing that. I love the data. I love the school culture because I totally agree with you with the everyone on board. It makes a big difference. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I just want to say the culture of the school there is amazing, and it does come from everybody working together. And, you know, the principal being on board with the message that he wants to send of fluency and of taking, making sure that, you know, they do have that opportunity to collaborate with each other after they attend a training. And I just wanted to say that Lindsay, I believe it was the last teacher that spoke, is in the midst of all this had a baby with special needs. She was pregnant actually when she was doing the training, and it was anyway difficult for her to become pregnant. So it was a miracle in itself. And then, but she's at home right now taking care of her baby who has some special needs, and so she's still very connected to the school and what's happening there, even though she's had to take this this time away. So that just I think that just adds to the collaboration of showing how involved they are at the school and how they're still trying to stay on board with doing the best for kids.
Thank you, Jackie. I love seeing your school, hearing from your teachers and your principal. It sounds great, and it's an inspiration to all Kentucky schools.
Thank you.
So Jackie, we thank you for being our host today. If you want to go to that last slide, I think it's got your contact information. I bet there may be some people across the state that may want to come see you guys. One of the things was Jackie was in our good news articles because students that ended the year, came back, had their summer of 2019, came back in the fall, they had zero falling back with regards to their test scores. And that's a testament, again, 30 of Jackie's students. So imagine 30 of them, she was able to exit because they had retained those math skills. Jackie, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. The Math Achievement Fund from the state of Kentucky is meant to be able to help kids like the Mullen School kids and move them to math proficiency. So I always like to give a shout out. Everyone's in the chat box. Kim Smith says, thank you, appreciate your school culture. It's making such a difference. Again, lots of people saying that we're lucky to have you share today. We thank you. Next week is focused on price value. And so thank you, Jackie, for being our expert today. See you guys.
Thank you.